Civil servants continue to be the engine of government, implementing policies and programs to move the country full speed ahead. With much emphasis being placed on making Jamaica more business-friendly, the focus is on public sector workers to improve their efficiency. And diligent government workers are doing just that. Among them, the Director of Transport Policy in the Ministry of Transport Works and Housing, an outstanding civil servant who has served Jamaica for more than 30 years. Meet Valerie Simpson, the confident yet reserved past student of Alpha Academy. Fresh out of high school, her first job in the public sector was a clerk in the Administrator General's department.
I was never afraid of work. I was very ambitious and I was never afraid to do anything. I applied to do evening classes at UA. And then while I was working at the Administrator General's department, and then I got a bursary to go in full-time, and then I felt it was time for me to move.
Her next stop was at the Ministry of Mining and Energy, and as they say, the rest is history. In 1998, Ms. Simpson began working in the Transport Ministry as Senior Director of Transport Monitoring and Chief Director of Air Transport. 6 years later, she was promoted to the position of Director of Transport Policy.
My unit deals with the main modes of transport, which is land, air, maritime. Anything to do that requires a cabinet decision or the cabinet submission has to, we are responsible for drafting or ensuring that the requisite information and liaising with the relevant agencies, that the information is pertinent and before it goes to cabinet.
Her unit also played a pivotal role in the privatization of the Sangster International Airport in 2003. That deal became a model for the development of a public-private policy by the Development Bank of Jamaica and set the groundwork for the pending privatization of the Norman Manley International Airport.
There was no regulatory framework when we were considering the privatization concession of the airport of Sangster. Now there's the Airport Economic Regulation Act, so we're not going to start from zero base now. Having lessons learned, we know what to look out for, what the government and the people of Jamaica and what the investor would be looking for in such an environment.
Ms. Simpson is also a member of the team overseeing the privatization of the Jamaica Railway Corporation and the Kingston Container Terminal. A number of air services agreements were also cemented with Jamaica under the watchful eyes of this dedicated civil servant. These include agreements with countries like the United States, Brazil, Mexico, the United Kingdom, and Canada. There was also a memorandum of understanding between several agencies under the Voluntary International Maritime Organization Member State Audit Scheme. In essence, this ensured that Jamaica was compliant in a number of areas, including ship safety, certification, and the protection of the marine environment.
Can you remember that we need to send out the letters by tomorrow because we have a deadline for them to respond to us by Monday. So we have a strict deadline. Thank you.
Valerie Simpson has a very good working relationship with her colleagues and is very serious about her work.
With respect to the public service policies and procedures, she is very knowledgeable about those things, and she requires of us on a regular basis or throughout our work to ensure that we do the best we can.
She pays a lot of attention to detail, and she doesn't like anything to be out of place, out of order, not in accordance with procedure. So, she can always be depended on to dot all of the I's and cross all of the T's and go beyond the call of duty if something needs to be done on time in a short time.
One of the things that sets her apart to me is that she's always willing to teach. And not only willing to teach, but she was also willing to learn. So even while I was under her directorship, I always said to her that I've learned so much from you, and in return she would say, you would have no idea how much I've learned from you. Prior to coming into the service, I had the perception of what a typical civil servant was like. Having met Ms. Simpson, among others within the ministry, she showed me that, just as much as the attitude of workers in the private sector were businesslike. That's how she was. Very businesslike, very purposeful.
Those qualities led to national recognition in 2013.
Our first runner-up is Valerie and Simpson from the Ministry of Transport.
I must be honest with you. I am not a person that likes to be in the spotlight.
To be honest, she herself wasn't so gung-ho like, oh yes, you know, I'm nominated. But I was happy to support the nomination and write the statements. And when she came out as first runner-up, I wasn't surprised because she really is a dedicated, bona fide civil servant.
With just a few years to retirement, having attained an executive master's in business administration from the University of the West Indies, Ms. Simpson is determined to do what she can to train young professionals.
As a manager, you have to put your best foot forward, even in the most trying of circumstances. You have to walk the corridors and listen and see, give and render some advice.
Valerie Simpson, Director of Transport Policy in the Ministry of Transport, Works and Housing, a devoted and efficient civil servant, pushing for greater productivity, pursuing excellence in the public service.